Hey, what's going on, everyone? Check out what's coming up this week on Legacies.
Fair enough. I wonder if you can actually just pick your teeth with it and get it right in your gums. Just inject it right in.
It looks like a toothpick, though.
The Trades was the #1 Canadian show on Crave in 2024.
Dude, they're coming for me, bro. They're coming for me, okay?
La
migra está aquí. They're coming for my ass. They do not want me stateside, brother.
I bet. Hey, welcome to Legacies, everyone. I'm your host, Tom Ritchie, joined by Wesley the Wizard Bowles. Wes, good morning, sir. Seems very bright in your... Is there sun shining?
Yeah, I think we still have a lot of snow on the ground outside around the Burlington area, so I'm wondering if it's just a ton of reflection. But yeah, it's definitely brighter in here today than it usually is.
It's bright. It's bright. I like it. It's bright. Yesterday felt like first day of spring. We got to talk about weather. It's a thing now. We have to every single time, no matter what.
Yeah, it was nice. It's
running around.
Glad our little parking lot's starting to melt, which is good.
Finally, some spots open up. How many spots did they take away with all the snow?
Oh, at least half of them. Yeah, and then I tried to shovel myself out. That after that first night, came out the morning, started shoveling, got the space pretty much clear to get my car out, and then the fucking plow came through the parking lot and just buried everyone back in. I'm like, fuck you. You did one pass through the thing. And, yeah,
have you seen, I don't know if they have it in Ontario or not, but there's the snow plows that as they're plowing, it comes down and it'll scoop the ends of the driveway at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know.
Well, you've seen the parking lot at this building, though. It's not like that. Even a tool like that wouldn't help because there's no.
Oh no, not there, not in a parking lot.
Yeah.
But I feel bad for as a property owner. I don't have to do this, but when the snow piles become so large for such a smaller parking lot, they actually have to call in companies to have it removed. That's not cheap.
No,
it's just snow. You're just removing something that just melts and it goes away. Maybe we should get in that business. Do you have your DZ license?
No, because I don't want to be up at 3 or 4 a.m. and not to call.
Hey, sleep in the afternoon though. No, not snow plowing. Just removing the large amounts of snow.
Yeah, but you already have trouble doing it at your house. You're already sick of it.
I just hate doing it. It's just so much. It's so much. Oh well. What else is new? This industry never slows down. That's for sure. There's a lot going on this week. Some weeks it's like, yeah, we could talk about that. We could talk about that. But then there's ones that are like, holy shit. There's more. The one that's infuriating, let alone just disgusting, is the robberies that continue to happen amongst dispensaries across this province.
Oh, we've had a couple more. So I didn't see.
I didn't see
those
it's
ones.
Like there's one every other day. It's not stopping. And the thing that pisses me off the most is maybe LinkedIn's not the right place, but they're active on there. So you got your AGCO, the OCS. When they're called out on something, no spokesperson, no PR, no nothing. Nothing is ever said about anything. I don't know if the independent retailers or the retailers in general have reached out. I'm sure they have. But, Jazz is involved with, he's got some WhatsApp channel. It's got like 400 different indie retailers in it. I would assume someone from there has taken the lead and reached out and been like, hey, let's go. Now, we know that window cover. So here's the thing. Window coverings are not mandatory in Ontario, okay? But you still can't have cannabis visible from the street, which means you need some sort of facade or all the product needs to be locked up behind the shelf. But then it also means your menus can't be viewable from the street. Just enough. Other provinces have gotten rid of it. Like, how many more of these have to happen? I'm starting to wonder if they're inside jobs, like people that worked in the industry that know full well, look, they have window coverings. The AGCO is not doing anything. Fuck you, I was fired. I'm going around and I'm going to start. Like, they can't be getting a lot of money. This isn't a cash society anymore.
Well, like I said, I think the more people talk about it online, about every single time it happens, the more opportunists look at it and go, oh shit, no one's paying attention to this.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
perfect. Yeah.
They must be. I'm sure this doesn't help, but maybe this will. I don't know. So I went and did some research and I'm like, okay, there's got to be, so in the AGCO, you go to their website, they've got alcohol, they've got gaming, they've got cannabis. You click on the cannabis tab and it has licensing requirements, submit this, submit that, whatever. And there's a contact form. And of course it's a contact form. So I'm digging in looking for a cannabis at agco.ca. No, it doesn't exist. We're not that important on this side of the sector. It just doesn't matter to them. So maybe if everyone listening sends them an email telling them how wrong this is and this stupid rule needs to be changed, their email is customer.service@agco.ca. If you want to speak to someone directly, their phone number is 1-800-522-2876. Give them a ring. Operators are standing by. Let them know how ridiculous this is. I think we just need to flood them. Like, flood them. Forget the tagging them on LinkedIn and wherever else. Flood them with thousands of emails. Just blow them up. They have to do something. If I was a dispensary owner, I'd just take it down. I wouldn't give a fuck. I'd be done.
Yeah.
It's crazy. In other news, you've got BC Bud Co. diversifying its portfolio. Have you heard this?
No, what's this?
They're going to start investing into cryptocurrencies and some other things. So this is a publicly traded company, BC Bud Co. And I was looking at their revenue, gains, losses. They haven't done that much. I'm not throwing shade. That's not what I'm doing. But anyways, they've applied, I think, to it's not the SEC, so it'd be the Canadian Stock Exchange, probably CSX, whoever it might be, those overlords. They're changing their symbol to RIPP. RIPP.
Okay.
Is that RIP or rest in peace? I don't.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the goal is behind it.
Listen, we've got Seth Yakatan on later. He's, obviously from the States, everyone, very well-known individual. He's worked on a ton of M&A and capital raises and done all this stuff in the industry specific to the U.S. But we need to ask him, like, does this make sense? I think it might when it comes to, these struggling companies. It's like, okay, the margins are shit. We're not making any money. We need to diversify our portfolio of investments. Let's start invest. Now, would I go crypto? Yeah, it's not probably me. Just I don't know enough about it. And it's not the only one. I think they're looking at highly regulated markets. Obviously, they have intellectual individuals within this organization that understand that space. But it's a sign of the times. Like, I've always thought this, like, with the capital influx into some of these businesses that were struggling even a couple years ago. I know real estate. I would be buying real estate, and not just to buy it and sit on it. I'd be buying like apartment buildings, like something. You've got money coming in. You got to do something. I don't know.
So what I'm reading here is this is not a shift in.
Well, they say they're going to maintain operations in cannabis, but.
Okay. I'm reading a couple that say the opposite, that they're completely pivoting from cannabis and with the name change and pivoting from cannabis.
Really? Okay. Well, I had read that they're going to continue. Where did I read it? StratCan, I think. But they were going to continue with their portfolio of cannabis products. But I don't know, man. It's just, listen, it
plans to transform from a pure cannabis company to an investment firm focused on digital and physical non-fiat assets, cryptocurrencies, and resource sector investments.
Precious metals.
All the power to you.
Buy the gold if you can afford it right now, because it's skyrocketed, and so is silver, which I'm happy with because I've been buying silver bullion in small amounts for 20 years. It's on a rip. Maybe that's what they're looking at. It's on a rip. Out for a rip, bud. I think, God, when you see this, it makes you wonder, right? So margins are razor thin in cannabis, at least for LPs. And suppliers to the industry. Terms are fucking killing everyone, right? Because it's a ripple effect or a trickle down effect, right? So OCS has changed some of their terms, right? Payment terms. But think of suppliers to the industry. So if I'm a lighting, hardware, nutrient supplier, in typical cases, most industries you offer terms. Pay us in, it's a net 15, 30, 45, 90 day, whatever it might be. But then they default. And these companies that are supplying the cannabis, like, it's going to get to the point where no one wants to supply and work with the cannabis industry because they're just getting crushed. The amount of CCAAs, bankruptcies, just non-payments, they're not getting it. And then I started to wonder, well, what about accounts receivable? Like, we used to, in any organization, you're dealing with accounts receivable, and lawyers deal with accounts receivable like no other, and which is why they move to such high retainers. Anyways, side note. So in these cases where you have these vendors to the cannabis industry, if they have to start shutting terms down, that means they need to be cash positive. They have to be cash flow positive on the other side. So meaning the industry. So if I'm an LP, I have to be able to pay for my nutrients coming in. It's 100% upfront, or you're not getting it. You're just not. But then I started wondering about the accounts receivable, and there's no data to show what the outstanding debt in AR is in Canada to the cannabis industry. But there is in the US. And how accurate the data is, it's hard to say. But 3.8 to 4.2 billion was the amount of accounts receivable for 2024, according to MJ Biz News. That's huge. Now, I get it, larger GDP, whatever. But if you look at what did we do, 12.8 billion or something like that in Canada? Let's say that it's 10%. So even at $1 billion, there's probably $1 billion in accounts receivable outstanding in Canada that I would suspect 50% probably will never see their money, and which just makes it like that more complex to operate your business, especially as a vendor to this industry. I don't know. Maybe the first time, sure, cash up front. As we build a relationship, we see that you're doing well, then we can start offering terms. But terms are killing this industry.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you can extrapolate, because I looked at, it looks like the GDP was projected in 2023 for the U.S. to be for cannabis at least what was it here? Projected to be 33.6 billion. So it looks like about 10%.
Yeah,
10%.
So
I guess if you could extrapolate that, we're probably 8. Sorry.
Well, I think we were 7.6, but projected was bigger. So even just 700, it's still astronomical numbers.
Yeah.
Which makes you wonder, so as a vendor, it's one thing. You've already got supply chain logistics, you're figuring all that stuff out. Now you have to have financial analysis on your team to be able to look and go, hey, can we offer terms to this company? And in some cases, their financials aren't available unless they're a pubco. Some put them out, but I don't know. It's rough. And because think about it, right from the supplier or vendor to the LP, all the way through to medical platforms, et cetera, they all offer terms in some cases. And, again, the amount of bad debt that's out there and CCAAs that are happening, it's crazy. Anyways, Health Canada has put their inaugural data collection. I don't know why they're calling it data. I guess they're analyzing some data, but they got 100 samples out. 100 samples they tested, 50 from the regulated market, 50 from the illicit market. I was quite surprised, actually, on the regulated side, some of the numbers that we saw. So I think it was 50% of products tested on the regulated market were under what the THC levels were. I'm not even worried about that stuff. That's not the part that scares me. It's the heavy metals and, more importantly, pesticides. So when it came to pesticide testing, and this is not, I guarantee they're just being up and up with it. They're testing. They're not trying, because they're not throwing shade at the black market or anything. They're just testing samples. This is staggering. 94% of samples tested from the illicit market had pesticides in it, like 3 or more pesticides in those samples.
That's a lot.
But I mean, so someone that understands the legacy side, worked there, took care of their crops, very clean with everything, very careful with, I never use pesticides, but you get a lot of flack from the illicit market saying, oh, you don't know, the products are better, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, 94% of 50 samples collected contain pesticides. That's the number one. That's the shit that you do not want to be inhaling, right? Combustion of pesticides is no bueno, right? The heavy metals, higher on the regulated side than I would like to see. I think some went through, but those aren't the ones that are horrible. But the other one was the microbials. The microbial counts in the illicit side was just astronomical. Now it was present as well in the regulated side, but not near the numbers. Every sample gets tested. Not all labs are created equal, but
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that heavy metals were more common in the legal side than they were in the illegal side.
yeah.
And specifically in levels like copper and stuff, which were well above legal
Which
limits.
is strange, right? Now that's according to, does Canada not have their own pharmacopoeia? I'm
not
know if
sure.
they do, because they always compare it to the U.S. pharmacopoeia, or so in comparison or by standardized, whatever of U.S. or EU pharmacopoeia. Do we not have our own? Do we not have the means to do that? But anyways, yeah. Yeah, obviously heavy metals are important, but the pesticides, like in order of importance of what you want to be careful of putting in your body, pesticides, number one, microbials, number two, and then you start getting into your heavy metals and then your THC and, like levels, that sort of stuff. But be careful.
Yeah, I'd also be interested to understand their product selection criteria, what they were selecting. I mean, I know that they purposely picked up products from a bunch of different provinces, obviously, most of the provinces, but I'd be interested to see, obviously they're not going to release brand names and stuff like that, but what were their criteria for selecting products? Because, it would just be interested to see is a lot of this coming from, the bigger quote unquote corporate, or is this a mix of craft brands, or do they even look at that? I'd also like to see those numbers that they provided at least broken down by the province where they were picked up from as well. Because yes, we have a general as a whole, but is there an issue in Ontario more than anything, or Alberta more than anything?
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I'd like to see those numbers broken down by province too.
Like that.
I also I just think 100 samples really isn't
It's not that
a lot
much
when you have 7,000 legal SKUs plus, right? Like,
there's so many. That's a good point. It makes you wonder, one, who did the testing? Hopefully it was High North. Hey, Rick. I don't know. Like, and what are they paying, right? Which is, they've got plenty of budget. There's plenty of budget to do the testing. But 50 and 50, not so much. But when you're seeing 94% of samples coming back with pesticides, that just makes me want to stay away from that. Calgary has passed a motion to allow cannabis sales at events. So they're following suit with Edmonton, obviously. I almost said the state. Sorry, Canadians. The province of Alberta ushered in framework to allow for this to happen. And now it's up to the municipalities to decide whether or not in the cities. So good on the councillor that brought that forward. I think there's still challenges, obviously, but it's a step forward. Ontario, I don't know what you're doing. AGCO, again, customer.service@agco.ca. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Like, why are we so? There was a quote actually from this counselor that brought it forward, and I should have written the name down. I forgot, but it was something about like there's enough stigmatization. These are adults. Let adults choose. We already have framework to allow them.
the quote is, "This is really about regulation and policy and not about the judgment we should be passing on people for what they choose to do as adults."
Yes, thank you. And who was the counselor? What was her name?
It's here. Apologies. Counselor Penner.
Counselor Penner.
Yeah.
Like, is that not the way it should be? Like, it just feels like it's continuous passing judgment. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, window coverings. We got to protect children. We got to do this, but we're going to put all the employees in harm's way. Come on, get off of it.
Hey, but at least we're reducing the minimum price of alcohol in Ontario.
Yeah, but aren't they going to get a tax hike? I think there's a tax hike coming too.
Maybe,
but they've got this all planned out, Wes. Like, okay, we're going to reduce this because we're going to put this up. Like, what the fuck?
It is. I do. When I saw that announcement from Ford, like, that's my campaign promise, is to remove that minimum price. I did enjoy and saw it as pretty positive reading through the comments on multiple channels about that. Like, I think people, especially of the younger generations, are like, why alcohol's
who gives
terrible?
a shit?
Like, why are we?
It's horrible. It's poison.
Yeah.
That's why you see functional beverages doing so well. Like that category's on a rip. Like,
yeah, it's not hard to see why they're great and they're extremely enjoyable.
And you can infuse them.
Yeah.
Oh man. I caught a product. I haven't been into the product scouring lately, but I caught a product. You'll know him by Bud Tender Dad on Instagram, and he had posted something from there's a brand called Happy Hour, and they're called THCA sticks. Okay, they're diamond sticks, and it looks like a toothpick that you shove into your pre-roll or freshly rolled joint to add a kick. I think it's 40% THCA diamonds it adds, or 40% THC. I don't know. Anyways, I thought that was it. At first, I'm like, what the fuck? Toothpicks? Like, I just saw the image, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Then I had to do some research. Okay, you shove them down you push them into your joint. I don't know. Does it, like, do you need to boost it that much?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm all for innovation. This is interesting for sure.
It is interesting. I'm just looking at it going, oh, fuck, I'm just going to blow a hole in the side of my joint trying to push this in.
Fair enough. I wonder if you can actually just pick your teeth with it and get it right in your gums. Just inject it right in.
Wait, it looks like a toothpick though. What are they called? THCA sticks? Happy sticks? No, I think they're just THCA sticks. But it's by Happy Hour.
I guess I'm reading some reviews on here, and some people seem confused. Well, yeah, again, same confusion as us. It's.
I think that's what you do is you push it down in there, but again, but it just points out another problem. Like, well, we can't talk about what you can do. So I get interested. A bud tender is gonna have to teach me, right? I don't necessarily go in and go like, this is like a food topper for my dogs. Like, they don't really like the food, so I need to give them something else. It's a little extra.
One of the interesting pieces of feedback that they're pointing out is they like the idea, but they're noticing, depending on the joint you stick it in, it burns completely differently to the flower, right? So you could have you have a really tightly packed joint with one of those, it probably burns evenly, but then you get something that's, a little less tightly packed, and all of a sudden this stick's sticking out of the end because it's not burning at the same speed. And
it'd be some hit and miss if you're rolling your own. Oh, I need to have it more dense, not so much. I love to see innovation. So kudos on this because I think it's cool. I personally don't have the need to boost my joints, but I just see recipe for disaster, like sticking it out the side of the joint, and some you get they're packed so much.
I did. I'll speak to a really nice experience I had over the weekend. I tried. So Nugs has a new hash wrapped.
Oh my god, joint. You got those?
I got one of those.
And you didn't tell us?
Because I saw it. I had to pick it up. But it's so for anyone who doesn't know, looks like a regular 1 gram joint with a nice, me, I like my nice ceramic or glass tips or whatever. And then at first you pull it out and you go, oh, that's like a standard blunt wrap. Like it looks like a standard blunt wrap, but you read the packaging and stuff, and it's actually wrapped.
It's a hash
thin layer wrap, and that thing burns smooth. That was really, really nice. And then I picked up some other. I won't mention the brand name, but I picked up some other infused. It's a variety pack.
You have to share with me, so I avoid it.
Remember I told you about this issue before. When I opened this thing, it smelled like a children's candy store. It was horrendous.
I don't know. I know there's a demographic and a market for it, but I just don't. I don't mix that.
Yeah, no.
I don't know. Some vapes I can get away with it, but in pre-rolls, that sort of stuff, just no bueno. Again, no bueno. Anyways, we've got exciting show today. We've got Ryan Lindsay back on, who is the creator and executive producer of The Trades, coming in for a season 2. Whoa,
nice!
They sent those screeners over, and this is from the Crave PR team, and I'm like, awesome! I feel like Conan O'Brien getting a preview, and then I started to watch the first one. I'm like, I can't do this. I need to see them all at the same time.
Yeah,
and it had a disclaimer, it's like, there may need to be color correction and some further editing and stuff like that. And I'm like, I want to see the final product. So, anyways, it'll be interesting to see if any new characters are introduced this year.
I want to see if the raccoon comes back.
I want to see how much they push the bar on cannabis use. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, it's always. I think we've become accustomed to it, and depending on the the show or what it might be and how we are attaching cannabis to it. But it typically comes off as still stonerish. I'm not saying the trades does this or anything like that. Actually, they wove it in just like it's natural, right? If you remember, I think it was the first episode of season 1. The sister was in the tub, I forget her name, and she was hitting a bong. And it was just natural. That was fully natural, and I'm like, that's natural. But in other cases, they get, stereotyped quite a bit. It's like, like Pineapple Express. Then we've got, go ahead.
I'm really happy with the turnaround on this. It's not normal you see a season 2 come right after season 1 that quickly, especially for a good show like that.
We'll have to ask Ryan how.
I'm coming off Severance, where I had to wait 3 years to get season 2 of Severance, and waiting 3 years for a show that good is fucking criminal.
But in those cases, is it based on? I don't know if Ryan can share this with us, but did they come in going, because the way that some of these like Netflix and Amazon or Prime, whatever, they'll be like, yeah, we're going to give you a 3 series or 3 season deal or 4 movie deal or something like that. I don't know if that was the case with Crave and the trades with Ryan, but you could tell one was coming. I mean, the trades was already out. He was like, oh, I can't speak to that.
Yeah.
But that's a good point. How did they turn it around so quick? When did the first one air? Did they drop? I think they dropped all the season or all the episodes at the same time.
First episode date was March 27th, 2024.
Okay. So yeah, by the time it's rolled out, you want to see what this if you're Crave, you want to see what the success is potentially, and then commit or not. It's a great show. It's just fun.
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious. Fun. It's Canadian, so even better. And then we've got Seth Yakatan on. This guy, I'm telling you, he's when I had met with him, I'm like, hey man, I know you're busy. If you want to come on Legacies, I get it. You're from the US. We've got US guests, whatever. And I'd asked a question where like, how did you become, what you are in the space? Because he's very revered. Like, he's like, it wasn't something I was planning. It just kind of happened. And I think that, he's obviously vocal. He's smart though. He understands which companies are doing it right, which ones aren't. He's obviously been involved with a lot of M&A activity and raising capital for the right companies. But it gives you a different perspective, right? Just like from the seats that we have, we can see a lot of weird shit going on and what's going to work or not going to work. And I don't know, man. Anyways, should be an interesting episode. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right. Welcome back, everyone. We're joined by Ryan Lindsay. Ryan, the trades, executive producer, new proud father. Man, welcome back. How's it going?
Yeah, man, it's good to be back, and we got to make this not an annual thing. We should probably make it a more frequent thing.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's going, man. It's been a busy year, obviously. Can't wait to talk more about the success of the show. Season 1.
Oh man, it's well, congrats on that season 1. I don't know if we had a chance to follow up. Obviously, the last time we had you on, it was after the launch of the trades and much success. We had a chance to watch it ourselves. Crave PR was kind enough to send over some screeners. And listen, I started it. Kudos, first of all, on having the hip opening. Love it. Okay.
Nice.
But I started into it and I'm like, I've got to binge watch this. I can't get into this right now. And this was yesterday. So I was tight for time anyways, but I'm like, I'm going to watch a few minutes. And I loved it right away. Right away. No one works the rod like Todd.
Yeah, man. I'm glad they sent you some screeners. That's great. Well, how many did they send you?
They sent 3, but again, I'm like, okay, because I'm going through and I'm trying to find. So there's so many questions, man. One, has the release date been set yet for season 2? It has. Okay,
March 14th. That's the Friday. The March break week in Canada here.
Yeah.
And they're doing the 2 episodes a week.
Okay.
Release schedule. So
okay.
Yeah.
And Wes and I, when we were in the lead up to the show, he had a good question. So turnaround time for a second season in something is generally, it's prolonged. It takes time, depending on the show itself. Is this normal to see? Because you're Like you're right at, what was the last one? March 24th was the premiere of the trades, I think, wasn't it? Of
Yeah, the
2024.
21st or something like that, but not this team, man. We
Jeez.
turned things over pretty quick.
You guys are working like trades.
It's yeah. Well, no, then we'd be sitting in a truck.
Well, yeah, you'd have some time. Yeah, that's true. Okay. All right.
But no, it's no, joking aside, it's the team, man. We've got obviously been able to like plug into the Trailer Park Boys infrastructure, the SwearNet infrastructure, and that brings along the back office, the editing, the post production, like all of that is they've just done it for decades, so it's
it's a well-oiled machine over there.
Yeah, and it's doing Trailer Park or the trades at that. We're not making we're not doing Last of Us or like Lord of the Rings or anything. There's although we do have like a heavy VFX episode this year, which is actually the episode that I directed.
Okay.
And
awesome.
it's the night shift episode.
Okay.
So we do have an episode which is kind of stand out in a bottle one and got some VFX. But I mean, back to your point, it's like we pushed our schedule 2 months to accommodate a lot of things. But so we even shot the show season 2 months later than we did season 1. So that condensed our delivery schedule, and we're still hitting our milestones. So
man, awesome.
You do what you got to do.
Yeah, that's true. So the question is, we're seeing the return of the vast majority of, if not all the characters, I think, correct?
Yeah, the ensemble's back. Our core crew, everyone from the Steph the safety chick, Palmer.
I was gonna ask if safety chick's back. Okay, good.
Yeah, of course. Sue Kent's incredible.
And Randy making a return again as well. Crazy Randy.
Yeah. We've got Tom Green obviously back. Yeah, so but we've added a few castmates this year, which
nice.
We already had a bloated ensemble, which brings its own challenges in terms of logistics and production. But we added Jen Irwin.
Okay.
So Jen Irwin, from that like Eastbound and Down, Danny McBride camp.
Yeah.
She's done Superstore and a bunch of other shows, but she comes on board as an antagonist this year.
Okay.
And
is the raccoon back? Is the raccoon back? That's
everybody asks that. I tried to kill Snacks off, and based off of the sentiment online and the network and everybody else, Snacks is returning.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a season 3 if you didn't. They'd be like, no, why? Come on, Snacks. All right, so for those that are just tuning in, maybe living under a rock, walk us through what the trades is and what we can expect for season 2.
Cool. So the trades is a blue-collar scripted comedy, currently available on Crave in Canada. Not distributed on any international or US networks just yet. That should change soon. But it's a 30-minute comedy, scripted comedy. My partners on the project are the Trailer Park Boys, so that brings Rob Wells, Mike, JP, Gary Housem, their producer, and everything that they've created and relationships they've built as well. And there's just it's a show that was developed and produced with Bell Media. It's it's been great. They have an awesome team and have been super supportive of the show. And we kind of it falls into the Trailer Park Boy. There's vulgarity and there's obviously a distinct and hopefully authentic humor to the show that's relatable for a lot of blue collar workers and tradespeople. And then it's also got a lot of heart. We're really trying to stay true to that mixture of something funny, something ridiculous, and something heartfelt. So
well, I think you did a good job on hitting all of them. And I think that's the thing is, again, I shared this previously. I worked very closely with trades for almost a decade. You fucking like you nailed it,
That's
right?
good.
And but the thing, because I joked right at the onset was, oh, you're acting like trades, like you got it turned around. It's not so far from the truth because I worked with them. So 75% of the time is fucking around, having fun, doing whatever, but they'll get the job done. Like,
Yeah.
unless they hate their supervisors or overlords, right? Then it's like, nah, this is going to take a week. I'm sorry. Meanwhile, they could have a press up in fucking 30 minutes or something like that.
And the majority of the jobs are like in, hazardous prone situations and
Yes.
like, or at heights and
Mhm.
are physical. And I get why there's a lot of downtime in the industry. And I obviously, it's my responsibility to rag on it and
Yeah.
razz them. So but I also have like the utmost respect for all blue collar workers. It's just like that's why we made the show. The
Yeah.
show is basically, you know, it's influenced heavily by my upbringing in Sarnia. It's very heavily influenced by my brothers, who we've talked about before, but
Mhm.
one's a carpenter and one's a pipe fitter. And as you'll see in season 2, we go onto the pipeline.
Right.
And that's my middle brother Tyson. The last two years of his career, he transitioned to working on pipeline.
Okay.
So
Well, that'll be
he,
interesting because it's something that we don't really think about too much, right? So season 1, obviously Todd gets a stack up, rocking and rolling. Now, again, no one works the rod like Todd. He's following this lifelong dream of working. Like he must have worked the pipeline somewhat, but it's not something that we think about, right? It's just it exists. We get this stuff somehow. We don't know how, but
yeah, we read about it in the news.
yeah,
Obviously there's whether it's on the activism side or the corporate side, like you said, it's we don't know how much product is shipped under our feet
right.
across the country and or above ground in pipe. And um it's one of those areas that I wanted to focus on because now I'm familiar with it as my brother's gone through it.
Mhm.
And camp life, you hear a lot of like crazy stories about men and women going to camp.
Okay.
So we needed to highlight a bit of that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we also touched last time on, there's obviously been a decline over the decades of people signing up for trades, and which is such a crucial industry, especially in the journey person's field. Now, what do we call it now? Journey
That
person? I don't know.
works.
Anyways, um, is there any data to show that the trades has influenced, or is there an uptick in school registrations or people starting to pursue this because of the trades? Like, do you have any data points at all?
I mean, no analytics. It's worth tracking though, or worth figuring out a way to track it. But I do have anecdotal, like all the time, like a BA at a local here, or a foreman at a job will come up and say like, yeah, two new people came in and they referenced the show.
Wow.
And then the immediate follow-up question is that really what it's like? So it could
Yeah.
go either way,
In
right?
some cases, you're probably, I'm so sorry. This is this is what they expected. I'm sorry, but because obviously television, or do we call it television anymore? Moving pictures, it does influence, right? And I've gone on to this kick of watching Forged in Fire, and I'm like, I'm
Mm.
getting a fucking forge, I'm getting a press, I'm getting an anvil, I'm going to town. And I'm like, oh, whoa, hold on, maybe before the $20,000 investment, I should find somewhere to go and try this, right? My carpal tunnel may not work so well. But there is an influence. There's got to be. And as you said, anecdotally, yeah, they're mentioning it, but it's showing, I think, the lightheartedness, but also the seriousness. And that's one of the things that comes off on, or through the trades, which is life is still existing, right? Like you've still got all these outward pressures that they influence your day to day. And in these situations, some of this shit is very dangerous.
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a yeah, like I've heard from spouses as well, like
Mm.
guys will watch it with their wives or girlfriends. And the spouses will say like, is that what you do or not do at work? Like, is that how it really is? And but then it's the other side of it too, is like, yeah, there's there's a risk to that line of work. I mean, going back to your previous point about enrollment or the necessity, the need for new talent. I mean, it's kind of this mission. I'm trying to change my focus, and obviously creating the show and doing as many seasons that we're permitted to do and allowed to do is will be incredible. But I think there's something to tack on to it where, in seriousness, like, helping promote the actual opportunity, like the career of the trades, I think is an important thing to do. So I know a lot of cast members feel the same and crew members feel the same. So I think, there's something there. I don't know what it is yet. I can't put my finger on it, but we're definitely discussing it.
Yeah. Well, amongst the group, there's obviously a kinship, but I think one of the things that you look at is the fact that outside of the trades world, people jump careers. Oh, I'm going to do this. I've done it myself, right? I'm going to go from here to here to here. But in most cases, those that enter the trades, it becomes a lifelong journey and career. It's not, I'm here for 5 years and then I'm going to go do something else. I mean, the amount of hours invested to become, in some cases, Red Seal, and working on this, like, what is that, 10,000 hours? I forget what Red Seal is, something like that.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot of hours. They're not just going to jump careers. So for those that are entering, they're staying in it for the most part.
Yeah, and there's stability depending on where you live, and depending on your life situation. There's the ability to travel and see the world. Like, I know a lot of people that have been in the Middle East and worked. I know a lot of people that have been to South America or just traveled across Canada, northern BC, camps, whatever. It's like they're all life experiences. And at those jobs, you can learn from different individuals that didn't have the same training regimen that you did. So there's like this, this acquisition of talent, that personal skill set that you can do and have and acquire. So it's I always say, if I could go back, like, obviously I love this journey that I'm on, and life is great, but if I went back to 18, I would have dropped a resume off at the pipe fitters local, like my grandpa told me to do.
Yeah. Wild. Okay, so for season 2, any new locations? Because you spent some time in Nova Scotia, you're back to Hamilton. Were there any challenges with that? Do you guys fuck up any relationships in Hamilton with that play? I can come back, but you guys can't do this or do that. Any new locations? Obviously, we're looking at camps, that sort of thing. But
yeah, let's talk about Hamilton first, which is usually the exterior stuff at the refinery. These big sweeping establishing shots of the refinery. And we've been shooting at Stelco, and we've done both seasons there, and that relationship is incredible. Like, they've been so good to us, because we're essentially we're not shooting in a decommissioned area. Like, we're in an active, we're all 4 directions. We're surrounded
the amount
by
of logistics for that must be ridiculous.
They just love to play ball with the entertainment industry. I mean, like Reacher and a lot of like big shows have shot there.
Okay.
And I think they just get it.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of fun for them too. I mean, they love to watch the process, and everyone that we've worked with from the Stelco team has just been super passionate about the project, and that's what you need.
Yeah.
And then on the East Coast side, like, obviously the interiors and stuff like that. First season we shot at Nova Scotia Community College, and which excluding like hallways with lockers and stuff like that, you can pretty much set up any part of their facilities, weld shops and everything to sell it. But this year, like I mentioned, we pushed to production. So the difficulty with that is they've got students, in September and the fall.
Yeah.
So we had to make a pivot, and UA 56, the pipe fitters and steam fitters of Dartmouth, stepped up, and it was a classic, like, the trades saving the trades moment, where a BA from the local here in Sarnia, James Williamson, picked up the phone and called the BA at local 56. within a day, myself and the art director are there scouting the location, and then within the week we're signing a contract. So
Wow.
just super supportive and embraced the show, and then obviously the location worked out to be better than what we had at NSCC, which I didn't think was possible.
That's wild, man. So how does it work when, because Wes and I were curious, when you bring the concept, right? I mean, this is a big middle finger to those that turned you down. I think you were talking about, you might have been at Bell Media or somewhere. You were with Rob. You're like, that's the room that they turned me down in. They told me to go fuck myself, right? And Rob was like, "Oh, do you want to get pictures in there or something like that?" This is a big middle finger to them. Like,
I don't know if it's that. It's because it ended up at Bell, and I mean, if anything, it's like a testament to like personal and career growth,
mm,
because I went in there guns blazing with a concept that I knew was had all of the ingredients to be successful.
right.
I think last time we talked about the demographic, the target audience.
Yep.
I mean, 73% of the population globally is blue collar adjacent.
Mm,
Like your brother, your spouse, your sibling,
yep.
whatever.
Yep.
What's the next largest demographic? Everybody. So it's like it's massive.
Yeah.
So I knew in my heart that it had massive potential, and with Rob on board, it pushed it over, and that's really what this industry is all about. People just want to know, they want to be comfortable, they want to feel comfortable and confident that you can deliver a show, and I think that's kind of the secret sauce to pitching is like,
Mm,
you need to not only be a subject matter expert on the material and be resourceful. You got to have a great show, a great concept, but you also have to have a great team. And
mhm.
and bringing on Rob and the Trailer Park Boys and Gary it brought that clout. So not knocking Bell's junior development person for declining the show initially. Um, it's just worked out.
Well, what were the numbers though too? So to give them something, they're pitched how many shows a year or a month, and then only so many make it through.
Yeah, the ratio is astronomical. I mean, I've talked to executives at CBC and Bell and some at Netflix, and I mean, they get pitched thousands of shows, either solicited or unsolicited.
Mhm.
These executives and development individuals, they go to markets
Right.
where they're there for maybe acquisition of ideas or existing content, or they're just there to learn.
Hmm.
But while you're there, people know you're there. They
Right.
and they're tracking you down, and it's they're gonna pitch you shows no matter what. They're gonna hand you, things, thumb drives, whatever, paper. They're gonna get those shows to you. So there's a solicited way that these networks and streamers get pitched,
Hmm.
which is the correct way, and then there's an unsolicited way, and it's thousands of times, and then you go through that weaning process of out of those thousands, like they'll choose maybe 100 shows that they're interested in, and then out of those 100 they'll probably develop a dozen, and then out of those dozen
Jeez.
they'll green light 3 to 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's a testament to how important the trades are. But I mean, we can see it now, right? So once you get through one season, now the question is: it easier on a second season than it was on just getting the first one out? You want to see success with it. Is there more challenge, less challenge?
So in terms of production,
Mm,
like in terms of like development and writing, and the narrative's established, the characters are established, so you get to have a little more fun and explore some things that you didn't think you could, or like there's that opportunity. You don't really need to set the world up anymore. It's
right.
established. And then on the production side, it's yeah, I mean, you've obviously done it once. If you can be fortunate, which we were, to mostly secure our crew from season one, you build that family and that trust, and everybody, you can jump right into production pretty easily, and the relationships and the friendships are already there.
Mm.
And it became like a big family. Even the cast, like, they're hanging out at cottages on the weekend together, and like they built such a bond. It reads on screen,
Right.
and it's just it's one of the most like pleasant and fun and productive projects I've ever been involved in.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, so that makes it all easy. And then, in terms of like doing it more, it's the success of the show is the determining factor. And I mean, I don't get to see internal analytics or anything from Bell, but I mean, you can find snippets of data and information online. And an example being like Tom Green just announced, Bell put out a press release that Tom Green is going to be partnering with Bell to develop some shows.
Okay.
So, Tom's great. He's going to do awesome stuff, whether it's unscripted, doc style, feature, whatever, scripted. He'll blossom there and have a lot of fun. But the key thing in it was, Mr. Green is co-starring on the Trades, the hit show The Trades, which is in its second season. And The Trades was the #1 Canadian show on Crave in 2024.
Wow.
So that's like,
So cool, man.
you think of it's not scripted or comedy, it's show. So like you think like, all the unscripted shows and all the other scripted Canadian shows, and you just kind of lump it together. Then you think, okay, well, Crave is the largest platform in Canada. So what does that translate to? Is this the largest Canadian show?
Yeah.
You can speculate, but all that internalizing and analysis you do, it is what it is. I just want to make sure that everybody's happy and we continue to make the show.
Yeah. What was the moment where it sunk in for you that we're doing this? Like this is awesome. Like the feel good moment to go, I conceptualized, created, wrote, did all this work with this. And here it is. Like was it moving into second season? Was it the premiere of the first season? At what point in time did that sink in?
There's there's a couple stages for that. The first one where, like, I've worked on the show for, this is going to be the
Let's-
seventh year.
Yeah, that's
You
what I'm
know?
thinking. Like your head's down, you're either pushing, trying to get it somewhere, like with Bell or whoever it might be, and Crave, but then you're writing. And I'm thinking that for even season 2, it's like once they give you the green light, yeah, we're going to do it, which you can or cannot share with us, you'd be heads down again. Just
Yep.
add it.
The A to Z, like, of production of the show, I mean, I only really have just, if we get a green light for season 3, we'll be in a writer's room in April.
Wow.
And we're delivering the show all the way up until mid-March. So it's like, you really don't have much time. Of course you can, there's pockets to focus on other projects, and, obviously, there's moments to educate and learn and do other things, but it's, it's really like an all-consuming process to be involved from A to Z. So yeah, it's pretty crazy, the timeline.
What's the writer's room like? What's that? Give us a sense of what goes on. Like, is it spitting ideas? You've got an idea or a concept, and then you need to flesh it out, or
Yeah, I mean, it's this lends to like my other point about the moments where, like, the big moment for me was in Hamilton, and my brothers were there on set, and they've been living in the hotel with the cast and crew. They've seen everything, and they're like they're watching me work all day every day, and the amount of questions that you have to answer, and just how much goes into it. And that's, I mean, watching them acknowledge how intense it is and the chaos, the controlled chaos, that was a moment to me where they're like, dude, it's happened. Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
going on. And so that was a big moment. And I think, having them two involved in the show helps authenticate it. And they're just freaking hilarious guys in general. And once we all get together, whether it's at family Christmas dinner or in this writer's room, because they having them around is invaluable and a necessity, and so yeah, they like to participate. For season 2's writers room, we had Rob Wells, and I wanted to do it in Sarnia, here in Sarnia at my office. So we brought, we flew in Rob. We had Andrew McMichael, who lives in Sarnia. He came, obviously he lives here, and my brothers. We had Neha Kohli, who's a very talented writer from Toronto. Laura Silibet's from Toronto. We just padded the room with unique perspectives and talent,
Mhm.
and we spent a week jamming big blue sky ideas, like what's been bouncing around in people's brain. Everybody watched season 1, so it's fresh. You kind of think of each character, you think of like antagonisms, you kind of plan everything out, and it's I mean, I've yet to come up with a better system. I mean, it's been proven for how many decades of the industry, but it's
Mhm.
the classic, like, whiteboard or sticky notes and just cue
Yeah.
carding everything, and we do that, and you just keep talking about it until it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that's wild. I've always wondered what it was like because there's been stories shared, especially with like Saturday Night Live, right? They've been, Lorne Michael and his control and
Mhm.
what some of those episode plannings and the segments were going to look like. Um, what, so with season 2, Trailer Park Boys as a production, they were involved. Were they involved in season 1 outside of what Rob and his character and support?
Yeah, I mean, they're partners on the project.
Okay, they were partners season 1 as well. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, they're Trailer Park and Content House, my company,
Yeah.
are in a partnership. So um it's it's invaluable. Rob is obviously very trades focused because he's our protagonist. He's
Mhm.
So Rob, he co-wrote on 4 episodes with me for season 2.
Okay.
So that was incredible to tap that wealth of creative knowledge and comedy knowledge, joke structure. Like he gets it. It's like it's second nature to him.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, it's safe to say, like, the success of this show, I think it's a mixture of, the demand for this kind of content,
Mhm.
the target demographic that this content is facing, which is the blue collar, and then obviously the support of the Trailer Park Boys. That audience, I'm sure of it, transitioned well to watching this show.
I'm sure. I'm sure for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 more questions. What was the most rewarding, fun moment during season 2? But also, I always like to know the flip side, the most frustrating, whatever you can share, because obviously you can't get into certain things. But yeah, most rewarding, most fun, and then on the flip side, what was the most frustrating?
Okay, well, let's kind of like divide it up. So like on the production side, and then we'll talk about the
Yeah, yeah.
creative side. So the production side, like I mentioned, the most frustrating was pivoting that location, and then the reward, it was being supported by the local, and just how quickly they embraced us and basically said our home is your home.
Yeah.
Come film here. And with that comes a huge set of stress and responsibility. You don't want to damage their property or anything, so you're nerfing everything. You're very hyper focused on protecting that relationship. And then on the creative side, I mean, um, you just we're making a TV show in Canada. We're not looking at, like I said, Last of Us budgets or anything, like, so you need to you're limited in what you can achieve. And that's fine because it brings a lot of uh you know like creative intervals and resourcefulness, and you get to, like, really stretch your intuition
Mhm.
and when you're building out the creative. And I think the rewarding stuff is when you see a performer, like Jesse Camacho or Raul or Susan or Jen Irwin or Rob, or go down the list of cast. But when you see something on the page that you've been reading for the past 4 months, and you in your mind has a way that it's delivered and a way it's going to look on screen, and then the performer comes in and does it 100 times better.
Wow.
It's just like, it's just magic. And
I want to experience what that's like. Cause I mean, I've, built businesses, done that, and you see it and you have that feeling that's just good. It's like, oh yeah, this is better, or sometimes worse than I imagine. But that would be just wild.
yeah, we have the better, way more than the worse.
Yeah.
With this talent, like this level of talent, and even behind the camera talent. Like, I mean, there's camera movements that accentuate comedy. There's lighting. There's everything that you can think of that goes into the oven to bake this show.
Mm.
And it's it's worth seeing. I mean, we need to, budget permitting, we need to invest in more BTS,
Yeah.
to film the behind the scenes so that
Yeah.
people can see, how it's done. And obviously, like, you guys are invited when we get a renewal for season 3 and we shoot it, you guys should come out and check it out
Oh,
for a
it'd be
couple
awesome,
days.
man. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I've always, I mean, I've been around it. We've never ever captured anything like that. Wes may have on some of his other stuff, but yeah, you, I always just find it so mesmerizing, which is all the work. Cause all you see is what you're showing, right? You're not seeing the crazy. I always say it's like the duck, you don't see the duck's feet, which is just going crazy, and the duck's just smoothly moving around. That's all we get to see, right? Let me ask you this. Are you working on any other projects that you can share? I see this a lot within, I'll call it Hollywood, right? And everyone's, I'm doing this, and are you the next Taylor Sheridan, or maybe the Canadian Taylor Sheridan? What's that guy, like 38 fucking shows now? I don't know.
Yeah, he's wild and definitely a huge inspiration.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Like, I don't know him personally, but I have studied his work ethic and his body of work,
Mm.
and how he has built out his company and his resources, and it's admirable. I really think that he's doing it right. So yeah, so there's a bit of that desire to hit that point. And yeah, of course. I mean, I've got I've been back and forth to Europe, pitching co-productions with France and Italy.
Oh wow.
I've got some dramatic series, some historical fiction stuff,
Wow.
outside of the comedy box. Like, there's some serious shows being circulated and developed. But at the same time, the comedy, I love being, like we just talked about, like, I love going to work every day and laughing my ass off.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes crying on set.
Mm.
And I've done horror films and stuff like that, and it's just such a different experience than watching some poor actor doused in corn syrup with red food coloring in the winter, and you're just like, you feel bad for them. You're wearing a parka, like it's like the subject matters like dark, like, it's just so different than what we're doing on the trades. And but yeah, I mean, there's some blue collar centric shows that some companion shows that we'll be announcing soon. One of them is going to have a host, and it's one of the actors from our show,
Oh, cool.
working blue collar jobs. So
Very cool.
we're trying to do I'm trying to do some stuff in that realm and stay in that lane. But also, for 20 years I've been writing and developing other shows.
Well,
And
that's why I
now,
was wondering, because I could imagine writing for so long, there's probably some projects that were just tucked away, and you're like, I don't know if this one will go, but then you see success with the trades, and now you've got a name, right? And it's unfortunate that that's the situation that we always have to find ourselves in. But I get it. It's establish yourself so that you can prove that you can do something. Then they pay attention, right? Oh, yeah. So I would imagine opening doors to have these conversations is much easier now than it was as you're, battling uphill to, guys, just read this treatment. Like, this is
yeah.
where it's going to go. Believe me.
Yeah, doors are locked. I was crawling through windows. Like I was crawling through,
Yeah, the little
so
crack at the bottom.
yeah, but now there's rooms open and I'm like, what's going on in here? What company is this? This is
Yeah.
great. Like I didn't even know this company was producing this kind of content or
Yeah, yeah.
focusing on this. So there's obviously you get representation. I have a fantastic literary agent. So you plan these things out. Like you don't just you can't just run freely to market
Yeah.
festivals, whatever. So you got to be strategic a bit, and ultimately when you're Canadian, the goal is to how do you break into the US? How do you get a bigger show? It's and if that works out, great. If not, I'm fine just doing it the way we are.
Yeah, yeah. I love it, man. So you had mentioned, last question. You had mentioned about, so right now it's, Crave Canada. Will we see it in other regions? Is there demand for it? I mean, the trades are trades. I mean, this is worldwide.
Uh-huh.
But does the Canadian side of it, which doesn't necessarily come off totally Canadiana or anything, but is there a demand for it when it's so Canadian or Canadian produced? Like, will you see success? I mean, I would think that it should, considering the content.
Sure. Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I think our sales agent would as well. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things that it's being actively shopped around, and fortunately, that's not my job, because that's a whole barrel of work. But they're good at what they do, and the idea is, an ideal world, it would be on a streaming platform that has a global reach, and then if you're in Canada, you watch it on Crave.
Yeah, got it. Love it. Well, let's make sure that that happens. Hopefully, we'll see it. But Ryan, thanks for joining Legacies, man. Continued success. We'd love to be involved any way we can if there's a season, when there's a season 3 and 4 and 5. But we thank you for joining, man, and it's been awesome.
Boys, it's always a pleasure chatting with you, and yeah, let's do it in person next time on set. We'll figure out some way to get you guys out, and we'll do like a live podcast or something.
Yeah, it'd be wild. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Ryan, man. Continue.
Yeah. Thanks, boys. Have a good one. Cheers.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're joined by Seth Yakatan. Seth, my man, we finally did it. We got you here on Legacies. How's it going this morning?
It's going amazing, and it's shocking given how busy you are, and given the fact that I seem to be busier than a one-armed man in a wallpaper hanging contest. But I am so excited to be here. I am so happy to be here. I am so grateful for the opportunity to be on Legacies. Big fan of what you guys have done and of the show, and just thank you so much for the platform. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And you're joining. Are you in a coffee shop or a cannabis shop?
I'm usually in a coffee shop. I want to dispel myth. I do not own any coffee shops. It's widely held belief in the industry that I own several coffee shops. I guess I have the ability, or the default setting saying come to my coffee shop, because I have like 6 coffee shops in general places that I like post up at. So when I say come to my coffee shop, it's like come to my local. It's not like my actual coffee shop. But yeah, I'm remote today. I got called down to Laguna for something, and I didn't want to cancel. So yeah,
Wow.
this is my post up today.
Uh, we appreciate it. We're also very jealous of the weather because as Canadians up here suffering through the snow, man, you just make me warm and fuzzy just thinking about it.
You should be, bro. I was in Toronto. I don't think it was last week or the week before, like a day before they got the 3 feet of snow and the plane flipped over at the airport. So I
Oh
got
my
out
God.
just in the nick of time. Yeah,
Just in the nick of time.
just in the
Wow.
nick of time.
All right. So when we first started in, it was you woke up, your phone's going crazy. You were quoted in the Wall Street Journal, which I'm surprised it's the first fucking time. Like, what? And let me guess, investment, something to do with investment, considering you've worked and raised over $1 billion of capital. Jeez, what's going
Yeah,
on, man?
it had to do with private credit and kind of the situation in cannabis. And it was the first time, and honestly, it was kind of overwhelming. Some people grow up aspiring to be lawyers or doctors or sports heroes or film stars. I just, aspired to be on, section B, page 26 of the Wall Street Journal, which is like a blurb, like, ABC Industries acquires Tiemann Incorporated. Like, that's it. So, yes, overnight success, 35 years in the making, but finally
Wow.
happened. So,
There you go. So we'll find the article and see if we can post the headlines. But my man, I got so many questions. I think when we originally connected, you're like, listen, I don't know a ton about Canadian cannabis. Listen, bro, I'll give you the down low real quick. It fucking sucks, okay? But you've seen the industry, you know what's going on worldwide. You sit on a number of boards. I think one of them being an Australian cannabis company, which is Canatrek, I believe. Is that right?
it
They
is.
were a
Yep, it
customer
is.
of ours. They were a client of ours when we were doing compliance software with Ample. That's wow, way back. But man, you've seen a lot. And we'll first start with this. You know, the contrast between Canadian cannabis and the US side. Early days, 2017 is when we rolled legal and the money fucking poured in. I mean, it came in, no one could stop it. You had a lot of pump and dump individuals that were there just to, PR releases and, building the stock up to what it could be in its glorious form. And then 2 years later, even a little better, it just started to sink. You've seen that. I'm sure you've seen that. I mean, these are world headline news, right? But in the US, I'll preface that with saying all of that to say, like, if you want a penny in this industry now, like, it's so difficult. Wes and I were talking earlier in the show about terms, who's offering terms, and now the terms are drying up because everyone's getting burnt. But in the US, what are we seeing? Picture or paint a picture of the landscape, and we'll go from there.
Well, I'm going to go back and kind of address one point and then answer the question.
Okay.
So remember that I've really been in rec cannabis for about 6 years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I was an institutional investor for, 12 years. And then I was a micro cap life sciences guy. Okay.
Okay.
That's how I got into cannabis, really.
Mm-hmm.
And that trend of the Canadian capital markets opening up and spitting out a shit ton of money for 35 companies and then them having that whole thing go poof. I've witnessed in Canada for 25 years, right? So you go to Kelowna and
Ah,
Edmonton, you have a mining deal and that happens. And before, 2000, it was Y2K. You might be remember
right.
you had a Y2K bubble, right? Then you had the internet bubble there. Then you had the China bubble there, and you had another, right? So I've seen that trend from a macro market perspective exist in the Canadian capital markets 4 times.
Yeah.
So when cannabis first rolled out, to be honest, in 2012, 2013, and the Auroras and the Med Reliefs and the Vic Neufelds of the world showed up, I was like, I've seen this movie before. I'm not getting involved with it because I know how it's going to end, and it ain't going to end well if you're a shareholder, right?
Jeez.
So that was not a surprise for me. To go to the state of the U.S., it's tough, man. In the US, cannabis is still federally illegal. So, prima facie, it's really hard to make money in the industry legally and compliantly.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is that you had a big wave of money show up in 14 to 16 in the form of equity. And almost every single one of those funds has not provided a return or has gone, belly up.
Yeah.
So when the Canadian equity market turns off, or the public equity market turns off, and the private equity market turns off, you're really left with extremely high priced debt
Yeah.
only for the larger and better companies, or some form of, equity that smells and tastes like debt if you can afford to pay it. So it's become very difficult here from a capital perspective because of all of those larger forces.
Yeah.
And, what I like to say is each market functions differently.
Mm.
Every single state in the United States and almost every province in Canada functions under its same or individualized set of rules. So, I was up in Canada last week, you know, um, I don't know that I want to own a cannabis business that's based in Quebec,
Yeah.
right? Like I just don't.
Right.
I might want to own, have one that's based in, Ontario. I definitely probably want to be involved in a cannabis business in Florida or Missouri or Illinois or Ohio or New Jersey, you know, Washington and Oregon and Colorado. And, we can talk about California a lot harder. So I
Right.
look at things kind of on a market by market basis now.
And so on that then, man, I could ask 30 questions just by all of that. Because in the States, I mean, you're really operating as its own country in a way, right? Each state to state, they've got their own rules, their own regs. I mean, we worked stateside for a little while with Akerna. Man, I couldn't make sense of it. You've got Metric here, you've got BioTrack here, you've got these integrators, you've got Green Thumb doing this and Clever Leaves doing this. And which state has the most promise? Can you pick one?
I'm still really bullish on California.
Okay.
California
Why?
is it's a $3 billion market, dude.
Yeah.
It's not
Which is
going
almost
anywhere.
half of what we're seeing in Canada.
So if you take 3 or 4 markets in the US and add them up, they're still not as big as California.
Yeah.
I think what you've seen in the US is that as states come online,
Mm-hmm.
they build. I have a tiny LinkedIn presence. I've posted there recently about, what I've seen in Missouri and Ohio and Illinois. Missouri and Illinois are both billion-dollar markets. I think in some of these markets, they're stacked in the favor of either the MSOs or the entrenched operators. I'm very bullish on Missouri. I think Missouri is a very interesting state for me for a couple of reasons. One, because I kind of feel fundamentally like the government kind of got it right there. They instituted kind of a steady tax system.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's a Republican state, they seem to be in favor of cannabis. And although we could talk about this, not in favor of hemp. So they've kind of protected the cannabis
Yeah.
business. You have, because it's more regional and maybe less sharp elbow because it's Midwest oriented, you have 10 or 12 operators that all seem to function well together and talk to one another. And it's not about, I'm going to have the lowest price and I'm going to put this guy out of business. It's more like, well, if Joe has a store on that corner, I might not put a store across the street with him to compete with him. I might put a store down the block.
Yeah.
So you have an ecosystem there that functions kind of correctly because of the way the government set it up, and everyone at every level of the, biomass, manufacturing, product, retail, you can make money.
Right.
So, when I look at kind of, to answer your question, not where I see the most promise, I think, Missouri is a state that functions pretty well and will result in a couple of successful companies coming out of there. And you have a few more growth states that I'm looking at in, New Jersey, Ohio, Illinois. Pennsylvania's potentially going to go wreck. If that happens, that place is going to go mental. You have Virginia coming online. You have Kentucky coming online. So you have these catalyst areas that, I look at, say, okay, where can things go? But,
Yeah.
in terms of the greatest potential, I've got 15 tent stakes in California, and I'm staying here until either it pops or it falls into the ocean. Like, that's it.
But I mean, so you're talking about being here in Canada last week. You travel anywhere in Toronto, you can see the overwhelming effect of, we'll call it misfortune to the operators that run the dispensaries. I mean, there's one on every corner, like every corner. And I'm not sure how familiar you are, but I'll give you a quick walkthrough of how it happened in Ontario. Ontario originally was, we're going to go all online. It's all going to be government controlled. We're going to go ocs.ca. That's how you get it. Change of guard. Okay, no, we're going to actually put physical brick and mortar stores out there and they'll be OCS. And then, no, hold on. We're going to do private, but we'll do lottery. And then, no, hold on. And this was inside of 8 months, man. 8 months that all this changed. And then it was, forget it. No lottery, no nothing. You got money. You can build it out. Go for it. And as long as you weren't near a school, you could just up and run, right? And the capital, obviously, because it takes some capital. was that a shock? Did you already know it was happening? And because you're talking about, Missouri and some of the other states where the governments are talking to each other and they're taking feedback, I would assume, from the operators or those about to operate. Like, what? How do you justify, I guess, in one side, but on the other side, you got such smart government.
Tom, I'm going to say something that might come as a shock. I think every politician is a fucking idiot. Every single one of them. Go get a fucking job, dude. My dad grew up in an orphanage,
Jeez.
okay? I had my first job when I was 9 years old. I've never had less than 2 jobs. Go get a friggin' job, every single one
Thank
of you.
you.
Because all you're
Yes.
doing is spending my goddamn money.
Yes.
I'll
Yeah.
get off the soapbox. The issue with cannabis isn't necessarily that they don't do the right thing. It's that there's no playbook. So what ends up happening is they just kind of make it up as they go along, and there's not a right answer. It's not like, we can look at Henry Ford and,
Right.
automation or assembly line. There's not like a model, right? And what I tend to find is, and let's look at California, which is probably like the most idiotic regulated state that there is of any of them, right? I think when government gets in there, they kind of muck it up because they feel like they're trying to do the right thing, and in doing the right thing for the society or for people that have been disenfranchised as a result of cannabis, they just don't make good business decisions. And I've never really, especially with my current administration, I've never really thought government and business should be in the same thing together.
Yeah.
Like it's like church and state; they need to be
Yeah.
separated.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I will tell you that what I have seen is that in jurisdictions globally where they underwrite a more limited license model, the businesses just seem to do better because it prevents what you had in Toronto, which is every schmuck who opened a store thought they were opening a gold mine.
Right.
And what they didn't realize was that retail is a really hard business. And unless in cannabis you have some level of economies of scale, whether you have manufacturing or cultivation or brand, not having another leg to the stool in cannabis almost makes it impossible to be successful. Like there are examples of pure plays that are successful, but it
Yeah.
almost makes it impossible to be successful. So like when you have a history, book or a time machine, you go back and look at it, it's a poor rollout. And the people that are affected are like, the guy who owned a pizza shop and came over, from somewhere, and that was his livelihood. And he's like, I know how to operate retail, and I'm going to open a cannabis store. And now he's probably going to lose everything, right? And that's not fun for
Yeah.
anybody.
Well, I mean, you've drawn the correlation, and we've questioned this a million times. We see this. I want to get your opinion. So, is cannabis a CPG?
100%, dude.
Thank you.
1,000,000%.
Listen, folks, Seth has said it. It is. Like, I don't understand why people that are as operators, I don't know if it's lack of retail
Can I ask you a
experience.
question, Tom? Can I ask you a
Yes,
question?
yeah.
Can I ask you a question? You believe in a God?
Do I believe in a God? I believe in a higher power. Yeah,
Do
absolutely.
you believe in
yes.
something? Okay.
Yes.
Whether you're Christian, Jewish, Muslim,
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
right? You believe in
yeah.
a God. Okay.
That's right.
All right. Well, as human beings today, I could come up with 3 major forms of God that people believe in, and another like 6 that we could debate, right?
Right. Okay.
So the point that I'm trying to make there kind of loops back to your question, right? And restate your question for me for a second.
Yeah.
Right?
Is
Which
cannabis a CPG?
Okay. So there's a belief that has been indoctrinated in humanity for the last 3 generations that cannabis is bad. Just like the belief that the 3 greatest religions have taught that there is a singular monotheistic higher power. Same belief system, okay?
Got it. Yeah.
And because of that entrenched hegemonious desire, or the entrenched hegemonious legacy, you still have people that do not believe that this plant that grows out of the ground, that God in whatever form you friggin' believe in created, is good for you. Okay?
Wow.
So until we dismantle that belief, you're going to have people that don't want to promote cannabis. Let's go to your question. and I've waxed on this a million times. Okay. Cannabis is a $30 billion industry in the United States. It's growing at a
Jeez.
12% compounded annual growth rate of CAGR. Okay. I could show you a slide and I'd be happy to share it with you. When you look at cannabis share of wallet versus alcohol, beverage, tobacco, CPG, wellness, broad luxury, sports neutro,
Mm.
cannabis has about a 14% percentage of consumer share of wallet with an almost higher basket size or an equivalent basket size of any of those verticals. You
Wow.
don't have any strategic buyers in cannabis. You don't have any financial buyers of cannabis because the U.S. capital market deems cannabis federally illegal. Alcohol is a $300 billion global market that's growing at a 3% CAGR. You know what companies do? Companies buy other companies.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of time until the unlock occurs and every single cannabis company is bought by one of those 7 verticals. It's just a matter of time, bro. And I'm going to tell you what else.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I've
Mm.
sold 20 companies for founders. I have 3 founders that have come to me to sell not 1, but 2 companies. I sold their first company. They called me to sell their second company. I'm just planting seeds. I'm planting seeds.
Yeah.
Because look at Kiva, Gron, Wana, Wyld. Look at all of them. They're selling candy with a
Yeah.
little drop of stuff in it. Shouldn't Mars own that company? Look at Can, Uncle Arnie's, Breeze, Keef. Nowadays, Pamos, look at those beverages that are penetrating amazingly into the Southeast. What are they doing? They're riding on the rails of alcohol. And
Mm-hmm.
alcohol is going like this. Beer is a falling knife. Consumption is going down. That's a declining industry. What are they going to do? They're going to go into another spirit. That's all it
Yeah.
is. It's a matter of time. And
Oh.
something happened in the United States in the 70s where Richard Nixon decided to demonize fucking hippies. And it right? And we've gone after the prosecution of probably one of the most powerful pieces of medicine that we've ever seen. And
Mm.
anyone who wants to debate that, go on the PubMed, which is the medical academic publication, and type in THC and CBD, and you're going to find 34,000 articles that have been published on it.
Crazy.
Right? Like
Crazy. Yeah.
the first company I ever started in cannabis, I licensed 3 molecules directly from Raphael Mashula, and then I tried to develop them as pharmaceutical products, right? So I
Wow.
came into cannabis pharmaceutically because I saw this thing that I thought was kind of powerful. Obviously, I was riding off of the capital market euphoria in Canada, but yeah, I mean, I firmly believe it's a CPG, and I am telling you that I am 54 years old, and I am waiting until 2030 for people to figure that out. And if that happens between now and 2030, I'm going to be quoted in the Wall Street Journal every friggin' day because there's about 100 companies that are standing in line for me to sell. And if it doesn't, I'm going to turn this camera off. I'm going to go to my studio behind the coffee shop here, and I'm going to be doing yoga and making beads in Laguna Beach. You can come visit me. Okay.
I love that. We'd be there. Oh my God, man. Well, geez. So we're seeing the movement, right? Obviously, you're talking the beverage space. Big tobacco is in there, man. Like they're in there. They're shopping. They've already made some strategic investment. When I talk to those in Canada, they're like, nope, no way. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. They've already made investment. Like they've already done this. They know the space. It's highly regulated. Because we complain about excise taxes and we complain about marketing restriction. And yeah, I get it. It sucks. The game, the deck is stacked against us. But at the same time, big tobacco's coming in. They will continue to come in. There will be M&A activity. But what about big pharma? Like you're talking about your entrance into the space was pharmaceutically. Will big pharma try and pull any of the bullshit that they've done previously in other industry, or like what are we going to see?
Let me go back and address your alcohol or your big tobacco kind of
Yeah.
comment, and then I'll talk about pharma. Um, Big tobacco is kind of dumb dead money, right? So if
Okay.
I look at big tobacco, my favorite thing in the world is a big dumb pile of institutional money. It is my favorite thing. because I'm gonna tease them and I'm gonna punch them in the face and I'm gonna tell them how fucking stupid they are, and eventually they're gonna be like, God, can we listen to you because we've lost it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So if I look at what tobacco has done, tobacco has made 2 or 3 really big bets, right? So BAT put like 110 into Organigram, right? Which
Mhm.
again is probably the stupidest fucking investment I've ever seen in my entire life. You could have given me $110 million. You know what I would have done? I would have given you back $110 million. Anyway, and I want to,
Jeez.
give a lot of respect to Kronos, but he's sitting on $1 billion of capital from
Right.
Altria,
That
right?
changes a lot of
And
things.
well, no, he's really smart. I'm going to tell you
Right.
why. Because you know what he's doing? He's making 7% on $1 billion.
Oh,
He's
wow.
one of the most. Well, think about it. You have $1 billion
Yeah.
in cash. You gonna
Yeah, yeah,
spend it, or you're
yeah.
gonna make $70 million a year. So if he waits for 2 or 3 years, he's sitting on $200 or $300 million of free money to play with.
Jeez.
Right?
Yeah.
Think about it. Think
Yeah.
about why he hasn't done anything. He's no dummy.
Yeah.
If I then look at what like Turning Point Brands has done, and they've tried.
Mhm.
J&J made this investment in Psyche, which is an inhaler company in the U.S. If you go into any gas, food, liquor mart, behind the counter is a set of cigarettes and a set of basically vapes.
Okay.
So it's a matter of time until that gets unlocked. It will get unlocked somehow.
Yeah.
Um, So, I definitely see tobacco coming in and being on the ready. I don't know that you're going to see like major feel goods as a pre-made pre-roll behind the counter. Maybe you will. I think, if I'm in a biomass company like a glass house, that's probably a great, supply chain conversation. But
Mhm.
uh, I'm not sure on the pharma side, right? Look, I spent 13, 14 years of my life, starting small molecule and biologic pharmaceutical companies. The business model there is a little bit different, right? The
Mhm.
business model is patent a molecule that no one else can use and figure
Yeah.
out how to get it FDA approved and figure out how to get, insurance companies to reimburse it. And because you're going to develop 10 products and 8 of them are going to fail, you got to charge as much money as you possibly can on the 2 that might work and might not kill anybody that you can get approved.
Right. Yep.
I think where you're gonna see pharma come in is more on the CPG-ish side. So,
Okay.
like, if you look at like what Novartis has done, they have a very large generic and kind of consumer product division, which I think is now called Sandoz. They spun it back out.
Okay.
And almost every pharma, BMS, and GSK has an OTC division. So, like, you could go buy Aleve or ibuprofen or Advil on the shelf at a at a pharmacy in the US. So whatever you find in a pharmacy, probably 80% of that is either owned by a global CPG or a global pharma company. I think that's where
Mhm.
you're going to see the first entrant. I don't know if you remember a product called Dosist.
Dosist. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so, Dosist started out with a vaporizer
Yep.
that was effect based and had a
Mhm.
tactile, kind of metered dose aspect to it.
Yep.
I think what you're gonna see, just like, if we go into GNC or a sports nutrition aisle of a pharmacy, weight loss and libido and whatever. And I think you're gonna start to see that's where I think the
Mm.
first entrant is gonna come in.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
company in the US that I love. It's called Level Protabs. And effectively, it's a pharmaceutical guy who was at Novartis, who's a PhD from Stanford, who, makes effect-based, essentially tablets that dissolve under the tongue, and therefore focus and strength and workout. And I think products like that will get swept, kind of immediately.
Right,
Um,
right.
I could also see, someone in the confection slash gummy space do the same thing because the
Mhm.
distro channels and the supply chains for those are somewhat similar.
Yeah.
Um, so if it's not food, could you know, I don't know who makes like Ricola, but could somebody
Mm.
like that
Yeah,
swoop
yeah,
them up?
yeah. Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
coming, dude. I just, that's why I'm in it.
Just a matter of time. Let me shift a little bit to the brands, right? So I know that You have this in the US as well. We see it quite a bit in Canada, right? So the early days was license holders. You get your, what we referred to as an LP, then it changed to LH, right? Manufacturers, producers, processors, et cetera, all wrapped up. They have some physical facility. Someone comes to them, they're like, "Hey, I want to create a brand," and we've seen this before. Now they have a LP of record, we'll say, for lack of better terms, is kind of the way we refer to them now. These brands, they're building some prominence and mind share. So I'll use cookies as an example, right? Burner's, done well with building that brand out. Never tried the product, so I can't speak to any of the products. But then all of a sudden they're cross border, and cookies performs well in Canada. Jeeters is another one. I don't know the success of Jeeters in the US, but jumps the border. Like I see it from marketing dollars, marketing dollars. It's always marketing dollars. But you start to see these air quote licensing deals. A lot of them fall flat on their face. Germany, Israel's doing a little bit, but these are US and Canadian brands. I have to ask why. Like, what kind of value, or like, sure, if I'm the brand and I get a licensing deal, great, I'm going to sign potentially. But at the same time, if I'm the originator in that country or region, why? Like, what am I bringing? Am I expecting that my consumer populace is paying attention to what's going on in Canada and the US, and they've built a brand and now that's going to be in high demand? Like, I just have trouble wrapping my head around some of these deals.
Well, let's break it down. Okay. Let's say you and I own a cultivation facility in the middle of Quebec that throws off 30,000 pounds of biomass a year.
Mm-hmm.
I was in one a couple weeks ago. They throw off
Yep.
70,000 pounds of biomass a year. Half of that they put through their own product that they run through Quebec, and they kind of sell it. Half of it they kind of sell bulk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can start a brand. It's
Right.
not that hard. I think that what you have found in the US is that there's probably 75 or 100 brands that have built a following either because of their connection to community, like a
Mm-hmm.
brand like Timeless Vapes, who I will incessantly talk about,
Okay.
or a brand that has just an exceptionally high quality product or form factor that creates a user affinity, like a Grune Edibles, who
Okay.
came out with this, Christine Apple, who's the CEO, formulated chocolates in her garage. She was an architect, and she made kind of like a chocolate M&Ms, and she made a chocolate bar, and then she came up with this kind of 100 milligram, almost like an orange gummy.
Mm-hmm.
And when that dropped in markets, people went bananas for it. I'm going to use in the same breath Wyld, who's a competitor to theirs, who, has landed and expanded in 18, 19, 20 states in the US.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's probably, and, he's built up a loyal form factor following because of his taste and consistency profile. So what, you also have extremely super high end, indoor quality, flower brands that have built a legacy following or a cult following that will sometimes move into other places. And, two brands that I don't have any affinity or affiliation with, but like Doja, and Made Flower, has figured out a way to kind of transport that legacy and that quality scope across a couple different places.
Mm-hmm.
Alien Labs and Connected is probably another brand
Right.
like that, right?
Yeah.
So I think when you try to unpack why is someone in Canada want to license this brand, because what happens in cannabis is everybody tries to do everything all at once. And you know what people are usually good at doing? One fucking thing at a time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you something. Why do MSOs license gummies? Because they can't fucking make gummies, bro. They can't grow weed. Can they industrialize, and can they figure out how to move shit around, and can they get it into a store, and can they cut margin, and can they do all the G&A stuff? Yeah. Are you gonna go to Cronos, Organigram, Sundial, insert the next LP in that conversation for super high quality weed? You're not. You're going to
No.
find some
Yeah.
dude that's got a craft in fucking Saskatoon, Saskatchewan in a garage or in a warehouse where he's got 150 lighter and he's been hunting phenos his entire fucking life. That's the guy that I want to find, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the reason that people do these brands is because, okay, I've got a story I can tell. I've got a a built-in customer base, and largely I've got a set of SOPs to do something that I can't do. And because
Mm.
Canada is such a knife fight, right?
Yeah.
When I look at the brands that I've been promoting or involved with or touched, like a Can or like a Groon Edibles, it's an easy license deal for them. And for their LP partner, it's a great license deal because they have a differentiated product in a
Mm.
retail environment, which is a friggin' knife fight by your own admission, right?
Yeah.
So if you want a high quality low dose beverage, or if you want a high quality edible, and I'm a consumer in Canada and I can find, whatever the local thing that I don't know who made it, or I can find something that's brought in from North America that's marginally different, I might switch to the marginally different product. And you see consumers doing that, right?
Got
So
it.
I also feel like in some product, and I could be wrong, there's like a kind of a California bias.
Mm.
So if you can say California in some way, or Los Angeles or LA or Palm Tree in the branding, you're going to
Yeah.
do well. Look, the guys at Jeeter have fucking crushed it, right? Because of two reasons. They found a really great form factor and they're able to deliver, consistent potency at a very reasonable price,
Mm.
right? So I'm going to tell you, dude, if you would have called me 3 years ago and you had said these guys are going to become the #1 pre-roll brand on the planet, I would have bet every dollar that I could have invested that that was not going to happen,
Wow.
right? So,
Wow.
they've crushed it, And again, consistency in SOPs, amazing branding, great brand collab, understand the culture, understand the product market fit, and deliver that. So, if I'm going to go to, I don't know, name a Canadian LP and say replicate that product from scratch, and I'm going to be able to do it.
Right.
That's why they
Right.
get that in and say, okay, I can just make it cool and not worry about it, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's why those deals happen.
Wild. So, and then in terms of marketing, because I mean, that's obviously there's power in marketing. We know this, right? And Canada has its, we'll call it restrictions. In the US, a little bit more open, state to state, obviously a little bit different. I get that. There's a lot of chatter. I mean, we on the other side of Legacies is, high flyer media. We work with brands to come up with, creative ways to promote and we'll say skirt the regs or bend the rules, right? But the vast majority of them, for whatever reason, unless they're, I don't know, I don't even want to say what market cap because I don't know if there's any necessary relation. Why do they not spend the money marketing? Like in the US, I see it more, but in Canada, they're just, they don't have marketing resources. They don't have a marketing budget. They say they don't, and they stick to LinkedIn or, Instagram. I don't understand it.
I think largely because, like in the U.S. pharmaceutical market, where you have a capitated market, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a kind of a finite market in terms of what your payor is going to afford,
Yeah.
because effectively your provincial government carries your receivable.
Mm.
Whether you're a brand or whether you're a retail or whether whatever, I think it caps your incentive to do as well as you could,
Mm.
right? And when you have an environment where you have an unlimited number of retail outlets and a limited amount of differentiation, it's about profit. And if you're about profit, if we look at business and we're going to go and try and maximize profit, usually the first thing that's going to go is the marketing budget. So
Mm-hmm.
when you have the constraints that you have in Canada, I can see why that occurs. So if you look at the 5 largest
Yeah.
LPs, their motivation, it's also motivation, right, Tom? What's their motivation? Their
Right.
motivation is to make as much money as they possibly can. And,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people are offended by that, for me, that's business. Like that's number 101. Like, they're not philanthropists, they're business people, right?
Yeah.
I write I write checks to 10 or 15 philanthropic organizations a year. I don't expect anything in return from them except to do good shit, right? Like,
But it's starting to
when
feel
I,
like that's what this industry is just philanthropic. I mean, the money goes out. We don't necessarily see any coming back.
it's a challenge, man. It's definitely a challenge.
Yeah. Jeez. Let me ask you this. There's a Pubco company here in Canada out of BC. They call the BC Bud Company. They've just announced that, I don't know if you caught this press release because you're caught up with a lot of stuff, but they are diversifying their portfolio and changing their stock symbol. And they will be investing into cryptocurrencies and other regulated spaces. Wes, was that right? I think they were moving into some other spots. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I get it. At the same time, I'm like, is this just fucking writing on the wall here for us? Like, are all of a sudden Organigram going to come out and say, yeah, we are something holdings now and we're buying a bunch of real estate and apartment buildings? Because that's what I would do. I don't know.
I don't think so. I mean, when I look at the context of the pubco cannabis landscape, okay, and I don't know how many companies are public on, CSAE and TSX and TSXV, but let's say that's an N of 200.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 150 of them just shouldn't be public. Okay. So because some guy on Bay Street or in Edmonton or in Kelowna figured out how to make a shit ton of money because they owned a piece of a shell and they figured out how to back something into it, back some idiot into it with the allure of cash and prizes, and then ran out the door, right, with the money. There's a misalignment oftentimes of incentives. So when we talk about BC Buds, I don't know anything about the company, but I'm going to bet you if we did 2 minutes of analysis, you and I would determine that this is something that shouldn't be public. So
Right.
the pivot there isn't necessarily a black eye or a reason why you shouldn't stay into the industry. It's more that here's an asset that is desperately seeking purpose. So it is moving into the latest and greatest thing. I'm sure there's probably AI in the press release as well in order to garner attention,
Yeah.
in a noise-filled environment.
Yeah.
I think when you look at, again, the 5 largest Canadian LPs, they're real businesses, right,
Yes.
at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And where I see those companies going is global.
Mm.
And I think you've seen in the recent set of earning announcements, specifically with Aurora, shit ton of their money's coming out of Australia.
Yeah.
Right? If you look at
Yeah.
Cronos, they got a bet in Australia. You look at people looking at Germany and the UK. And I think what you will see is you'll probably see that the 5 largest Canadian LPs become globally diversified cannabis companies. And I think that's the direction that they're going to go in.
Wow.
And I'm not opposed to that. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when you have a gold rush like we've had in our industry in the last 10 years, there's a lot of bad decisions and a lot of bad actors and a lot of people that are going to get hurt. And you're still dealing with the repercussions of that, of fast money and dumb money and not having a model, right? It comes back to what we talked about legislation. It's not like there's a blueprint.
Right.
This gold nugget showed up in 2014 and everyone's like, I'm going to get my gold nugget too, man.
And so
Happens in a lot of markets.
It does. And that's what I'm wondering. So how much time are we talking, right? Because in Canada, we were looking at the alcohol industry, we looked at tobacco, we took in a number of factors, right? First, the G7, we're all in. Here's some, legislation, and now here's the regulations. How long does it take? How long will we say there's no blueprint for this? There's no playbook. Is it a decade? Is it 2 decades? Like, is there?
Tom, if I knew the answer to that question, we would be filming this podcast from the bow of my 130-meter super yacht called Destruction, and we wouldn't be doing it from a coffee shop. I don't know. I kind of thought that I was kind of optimistic that in the U.S. with a Democratic Congress and a Democratic, president that we would get
Mm.
relief. Didn't get shit.
Right.
So now we have a ruling group that seems to be interested in.
You were very careful choosing your words there.
I don't want to, dude. They're coming for me, bro. They're coming for me. Okay.
I
La
said,
migra
I,
está aquí. They're coming for my ass. They do
I
not
can
want me
see.
stateside, brother.
I bet. I can
If
just
my
see
tru-
you
if, listen,
looking
if
at
my, if,
words.
dude, if my true voice came out, I would be the white Malcolm X, bro. They
Oh
would
my
not want. They
God.
would not want
Oh
me
my
to
God.
speak. I'm telling
Jeez.
you.
Yeah.
What I was going to say though was that with the current administration, I don't know what's going to happen because it doesn't seem like this issue, whether it's right or wrong, is important.
Mm.
I will tell you what I think there's kind of a double catalyst moment. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know whether it's safe banking or I don't know whether it's DRE on scheduling. Okay. Um, the moment that you can list a plant touching company on NASDAQ,
Mm.
it's game on. It's game over.
Mm.
Right? Because if you think about the constraints that exist on cannabis, most investment funds, investment banks, insurance companies, institutions, corporates, whatever, right, either use the U.S. Treasury system to bank or to send wires, or have some kind of charter that prevents them from doing something which is federally illegal as part of their business practice, right? So why doesn't Goldman Sachs and UBS and Morgan Stanley and Merrill Lynch bank cannabis? Because they can't. It's illegal, right?
Right.
Right. I'd had my banking taken away. I have to bank in an institution that allows cannabis, right?
Mm-hmm.
U.S. Bank and Bank of America and Wells Fargo, and I could keep going. Don't. Chase.
Right.
They don't want
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So when that legislative mechanism, which is either potentially safe banking or potentially DRE on scheduling occurs, the complex of the universe changes. And I've spoken about this before. There is trillions of dollars of capital in the United States which cannot invest in cannabis. If you think about public equity markets and private equity markets and public equity markets and venture capitalists and family offices and corporations and all the people that we talked about, it's a double tsunami of capital that's going to come in. And when that happens, back to our earlier point, I believe that cannabis is just going to be viewed as another CPG that's competing for share of wallet and competing for shelf space. That's for whatever reason distributed in a different way. That might change. Then those hegemonious industries. If you look at CPG, 20 companies in the world control 80% of the products that you buy at retail. 20 companies in the world, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's coming, bro. I just don't know
Yeah.
when. I don't know when, and that's the challenge. I'm hopeful it's going to be in 5 or 6 years. If it's not in, if it doesn't happen by the time I'm probably 62 or 65, so if it doesn't happen in another 10 years, I'm just going to sit on the beach every day. But I'm
Making
optimistic.
beads.
Making beads. I'm optimistic it happens, but it's that unlock that has to happen. It's that catalyst, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure when it occurs. Honestly, I'm just not.
Let me ask you just a couple final questions. So one, there's big operator here in Canada on the retail side. They operate, so it's under High Tide, publicly traded. They have Canna Cabanas, 200 plus locations across Canada.
Know them well.
Okay, so Raj and this team, they were making acquisition plays in Germany. Now Germany's got a Democratic Party coming in that says, or has previously stated, we may overturn the cannabis industry. Is there any why would they do this? Why would they even say this? And how does that affect so much investment into that market from North America?
I'm not sure, right? One of the things that we could talk about with my current administration is that headlines are not news and news isn't reality. I don't know the legislative process well enough in Germany, right, to understand how easy it would be to unwind that legislation.
Yeah.
It's a risk, right? Could your, prime minister, find Jesus tomorrow and figure out that cannabis
I was
is
just
legal
going to say,
weed,
you talk about our
right?
prime minister, that fucker could do anything. Like he is
Right? Could he So,
off his
I don't
rocker.
know. I think what you find though now, whether it's in the investment committee or just in the general news cycle, that
Yeah.
headline is fact, and that fact creates existential market conditions that may
Mm.
or may not be buttressed in reality because of the speed at which information moves. I'll give you a great example of that. Okay. Um, I am not a tech investor. I don't know shit about AI. I don't know shit about chips. I have a young guy who works for me who was in NVIDIA 10 years ago. He's worth more money than I'm ever going to be worth, right? Because he saw it.
Yeah.
You remember about 30 days ago, there was this headline that came out that this Chinese company had invented a new chip for
Yeah.
100 times less than the NVIDIA chip, and
Yeah.
NVIDIA stock crashed by 20% that day?
Mhm. Yeah.
It was a fucking headline, bro. It was a
Right.
headline.
Yeah.
No fact, no diligence, no research, no truth. Headline.
Mm.
So I kind of liken that type of movement and story to the Germany high tide thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I actually am going to say this on record. I have a lot of respect for Raj. He's done an amazing job building that into a real business. And I'll tell you a funny story. I was involved in a company about 3 or 4 years ago that I tried to sell him because he had bought a couple of things that didn't really work out. He changed his strategy to just focus on what he's doing. And
Mhm.
since then, he's really delivered pretty consistent results operationally. And you know what? His business development people were like, yeah, we want to look at it. He came over the top and was like, we're not going to even sign an NDA. And I called him and I was like, dude, like, why wouldn't you even look at this? And he was like, you know what, man? I bought 3 things. None of them worked out. My board is wants me to be very focused on execution. And since then, he's been laser focused on what he's done. And I got to tell you, he's done an amazing friggin' job, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I got a lot of respect for him and for what he's done and his focus, and moreover, the results that he's delivered. And I think he's built a really good company. And I would love to see him be even more successful.
Yeah. Well, listen, the results speak for themselves. It's one of the things like they take a lot of flack, right? Because they are the biggest in the room when it comes to retail. And obviously, independents throughout the country, they're trying to survive. They're doing everything they can. They're competing against the Canna Cabanas that have this buying power and have this pay to play models and all this in place. But at the end of the day, you have to respect his business acumen. Like they get it. But then, on the other side of that, you're talking about headlines, you're talking about, the most recent news with the Chinese chip, but at the same time, it was similar to with High Tide. High Tide announces this acquisition deal, 51%. Their stock fucking booms. And then, whoop, we're pausing the deal. Now, I get why. They're not sure what's going to happen in Germany. But we saw these headlines. It was funny because, Bruce Linton and Terry Booths of the world in the early days, they're putting a press release out every day. Oh, Terry Booth takes shit in West Wing stall. Boom, the stock goes up, right? Like, I see it as still this maneuvering in some cases. I'm not saying that's the case with High Tide. Obviously, they were making a legitimate deal, and they want to still do that. But it makes you wonder how much of this is still going on. Because in the early days, it was every week there was something, and those stocks would just fly. Anyways, enough of that. I want to, have you impart what you get most excited about with this industry or where the capital's going. You've touched on it a few times, but we're not on your 135-meter yacht or whatever size we're getting here. Just give us a listen. I'll serve dubs. Okay. I suck at rolling joints, but I can serve. I can do that. Just put me on the ship. What gets you excited, man? By the time you're 65, where's Seth? Because he added this crystal ball. Where are you most excited?
Look, I don't really think I'm that smart. I don't really. I'm not kidding. I don't. Like, I didn't go to an Ivy League school. Like, I beat my head against the wall for 10 or 15 years before I kind of found my way.
Mm,
It was not simple. I failed often and hard in my 20s and miserably failed, right? Like, so where I've gotten to today is as a result of a lot of failure and learning from those mistakes and trying to improve as a person and trying to be a better person. The one thing which I do think uh, I've been able, as a result of that, to see a lot of trends unfold, right?
Mhm,
Mass
mhm.
consolidation in 5 or 6 specific industries. And as I've developed my craft and my skill, I've really been able to help usually single founder entrepreneurs exit businesses. That's where I've done the best, right? I've done
Mhm.
22 of them.
Yeah.
So for me, when I look at cannabis, I don't even know it's an industry, and I need to credit Tobias Rich with this. I think it's a collection of businesses trying to figure it out, right? So
Mm.
to call it an industry might be gracious, but I am convinced that you're starting to see seams where broader strategic buyers are looking at the business in alcohol and tobacco and CPG, and you're going to see others, right? And for me, what I'm the most excited about is that waterfall and euphoria and transaction momentum hasn't even marginally occurred at
Mm.
all. Like at all. Like what you saw between 14 and 16 in Canada was like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
And what I keep doing is I keep looking for, businesses that in any other industry you would consider lower middle market, private equity roll-ups that are generating revenue and generating cash flow and figuring out how to continue to grow. And I keep finding them. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, I talk about them all the
Yeah.
time. And the more that I underwrite this program of goodwill to find them and meet them and be genuine, be not like every other fucking dickbag banker that shows up who think that they invented oxygen and try and tell them what to do and how to, operate in the ecosystem, and to say, look, if you don't want to work with me, I really don't care. I want the best outcome for you, and listen to my advice. And when you're ready, if you want to call me and hire me, I'll pay the first guy to pick up the call on one ring. But that's what I'm excited about, Tom. I'm excited
Mm.
about the fact that I think in the next 5 to 7 years, that unlock of financial and strategic buyers are going to flood into this industry. And when you look at the Kivas and the Wylds and the Levels Pro Tabs and the Timelesses and the Good Day Farms, and I keep going of the world, that they're going to get caught up in M&A, and there's going to
Mhm.
be 12 people on the planet that are negotiating those transactions, and I'm going to be one of them, and I'm getting right in the middle of the field, catching touchdowns, spiking the fucking ball, waiting for the confetti to drop, and being interviewed by the Wall Street Journal every goddamn day. That's what I'm excited about, brother.
I love it, man. That's fucking awesome. That's awesome. For now, you have to settle for Legacies, but we'll get you to the Wall Street Journal. Listen, man,
Listen, I
that's
am happy to be back on Legacies. I am honored to be on
we'll,
Legacies.
we will
I am
have you
happy to be
back.
I am happy to be part of your legacy, and I am super appreciative of the time and the platform. So
Wow, it's been awesome hanging with you, man, and just chopping it up and understanding. And I think one thing that I'm taking away from this, well, there's a multitude, but it's the fact that you've stated, is this an industry, or a question? Is this an industry or a collection of businesses? I'm going to use it, and I will quote you, but I love it. I love it. Thanks so much for joining us, Seth. We appreciate you, and keep up the good work. And we'll see you on that 135. Let's just go 200 meter yacht.
look, once you get
It's
listen,
a nice round
I
number.
I don't think that's the universe for me. But once you get past 100 meters,
Yeah.
you're probably a small private country at that point. So
Probably. Yeah, probably. Anyways,
I'm probably
thanks,
just
man.
renting somebody's 100 meter. Well, listen,
Yeah.
thank you,
Thanks, Seth.
appreciate
We
it.
appreciate you, bro. Well, Wes, see, you thought that I knew everything about this industry. Not even fucking close. First of all, let me just say, I don't think I know everything. And neither does Seth. Seth doesn't think he does either, but wow, he dropped some fucking truth bombs there. That's for sure. Did he on record say that he thinks every politician is a fucking idiot?
Yeah, yeah, he did. I'm pretty sure you've said that though. But
Oh, I say that all the fucking
yeah.
time, like all the time. I don't trust any politician, not one. You start with, I've already stopped, tuned you out, I'm done, right? Do you study political sciences? We can talk. Are you a politician? Fuck right off. I don't, there are some decent politicians, don't get me wrong. Most of them, though, as they get up the ranks and the more air quote power they get, the worse they get.
Yeah.
Anyways, interesting insights, man. I'm going to be processing this for a while. Like there's a lot there, and I don't know if he quoted it or if he said it, but is this an industry or a collection of businesses really has me questioning things now, right? Because you do see the pubcos, and he's talked about them, but what are your thoughts? Like, do we? I'm starting to question fucking existence now. Like, what, is this an industry?
Yeah, I think it depends on your definition of industry, right? I mean, collection of businesses does make sense if you're thinking about, how many of them are actually listed, right, as publicly traded companies. To me, but I mean, we as an industry still contributed to X number to that GDP of Canada.
Sure.
So by all margin,
Yeah.
In
But
my opinion,
if
it's
you
an
study
industry.
any industry, I've never really looked at this. Oh my, like I say, there's just too many truths there. There's too much going on. I've got way too much to process. If you study any industry, you can look at the profitability across, so the medium profitability. If you looked at that at cannabis and you use that as a qualifier to consider it an industry, I think we're fucking failing drastically, at least in Canada. In the US, it's not that much different. Yeah. Now, don't eat me up and don't beat me up on this, but they're still dealing with the same issues. Like back to our original, AR, accounts receivable, is astronomical. That's where it was quoted from. So I got that from, it was like what, 3.8 or $4.2 billion in AR. That's pretty huge. But yeah, there's just so much there. What a great sport though. Like
Yep.
he's so busy to make time to join our teeny little podcast on our 52nd episode. That feels good. And of course, having Ryan back on, bro, I'm so excited to watch the trade. I might have to break down. You've got access to them. I might have to watch them.
Yeah, I'll probably wait till March. I'm watching a few shows right now, but it'll be nice to have some.
What are you
to watch in
watching?
March. Severance mostly.
Severance. You told me about that. I don't think I ever got into it. What is
Yeah,
that?
that's one of the best shows on TV at the moment. For
Come
sure.
on.
It's on Apple TV, but
Yeah, I can find it. I'm just so locked in on when I've got 40 minutes or however long they are, forged and fired. You want to go build a knife? You want to like hammer out some steel? We should do that. Team building exercise. This Tanya can come, Kirsten can come. We'll just hammer steel.
yeah.
It looks fun as fuck. Until we do it. We're sweating balls. Anyways, it's nice to have Ryan and Ryan back on. Seth for his first time appearance, quoted in the Wall Street Journal. It's probably fucking pay gated though. I probably can't see it.
Yeah, most likely.
Wall Street Journal is not one I am about to subscribe to. As a matter of fact, I don't pay for any media. Just not into it. Anyways, well, it's great hanging, and we'll see everyone next week on Legacies.